Hello and welcome to Corley English Micro Lessons. Today we will be covering the high-frequency phrasal verb go back. I'm your instructor, George Corley.
大家好，欢迎来到柯丽英语微课程。这节微课我们来学习一下高频短语动词 go back 的用法。我是你们的主讲老师丽丽老师。本来呢，我们原计划是把 go back 和 come back 放在一起来讲的，但真到做课程的时候发现，这两个中的每一个都有蛮多内容要讲的，所以我们还是决定将每个单独的做成一课，这样可以讲得更详细、更清楚一些。所以呢，这节课我们先来讲 go back， 下节课会接着讲 come back 和两者的区别。好嘞，闲话不多说，咱们赶紧开始今天的课程吧。
The first and probably the most common meaning for go back is to return to a place. When used in this way, the place someone goes back to is usually away from the speaker.
其实更通俗点来讲，也就是说话者当前并不在所谈论的地点，翻译成中文可能会更明了一些，也就是回去。
Here are some examples. Jake went back home after work. Jake went back home after work. George needed to go back to his office to get the keys he forgot. George needed to go back to his office to get the keys he forgot. Jacob got very excited when he heard he could go back to school soon. Jacob got very excited when he heard he could go back to school soon.
大家可以注意一下柯老师上边给出的3个例子，每个例子说话者在讲话的时候都不在所谈论的目标地点，这个我在每个例子后也有特别的给出注解。
Moving beyond that basic meaning, go back diverges into a number of different senses. Go back can mean return to a previous status, activity, or method. We can see this as related to the literal meaning of return to a place by thinking of actions we take as places. For example, once the fire alarm was reset, Bob went back to sleep. Once the fire alarm was reset, Bob went back to sleep. John didn't get hurt badly when he tripped, so he went back to running. John didn't get hurt badly when he tripped, so he went back to running. After several months of discussion and consideration, the leaders of the company have decided to go back to their old rotation policy. After several months of discussion and consideration, the leaders of the company have decided to go back to their old rotation policy.
这个含义下一个很常用的习语为 Go back to square one， 翻译成中文也就是回到原点，重新开始。这个习语源自某种方格游戏，但具体的是哪个游戏当前还存在争议。这里我们把重点放在它的含义和用法上。我们来看2个例子。The program crashed before I got to save any data, so I'm afraid I have to go back to square one. 程序在我保存数据前崩溃了，所以恐怕我得重新开始了。The program crashed before I got to save any data, so I'm afraid I have to go back to square one. Maria had to go back to square one after her sandcastle was knocked down by her baby sister. 在她的沙堡被妹妹撞倒后，玛利亚不得不重新再建一个新的。Maria had to go back to square one after her sandcastle was knocked down by her baby sister.
Another very common meaning we'll use for go back is to have existed since a time in the past. You'll find that in English we often think of the past as behind us and the future in front of us. So using go back with time will mean going to the past. This usually refers to how long something has existed or been in some state. For example, this store goes back 100 years. This store goes back 100 years. This house goes back to the first settlers in this area. This house goes back to the first settlers in this area. These tombs go back thousands of years. These tombs go back thousands of years.
"追溯到、回溯到这一含义可以延伸到来形容人与人之间的关系，中文可以翻译成与某人相识了一段时间。下面我们来看一下 go back 这个含义下比较常用的搭配。当我们想要表达 A 和 B 相识有一段时间了，我们就可以用 A 和 B go back 后面加诸如20年、30年这样的一个时间段。同样的意思也可以用 A goes back 加某个时间段 with B 这个结构来表达。比如我们可以说Mark and Eric go back 20 years, or Mark goes back 20 years with Eric. 马克和埃里克相识20年了。Mark and Eric go back 20 years. Mark goes back 20 years with Eric. 当我们想要表达 A 和 B 在过去某个时间就相识了，我们可以用 A 和 B go back to 加过去的某个时间点或时间段，比如可以是某人小学的第一天、某人的高中时代等表示时间的短语。同样的意思，我们也可以用 A goes back to 加过去的某个时间点或时间段 with B 这个结构来表达。例如 Nancy and I go back to our high school days. Or Nancy goes back to her high school days with me. 我和南希在高中时就认识了。Nancy and I go back to our high school days. Nancy goes back to her high school days with me. 当想要表达 A 和 B 相识已久， A 和 B 是老相识了，我们可以用下面两个结构。A and B go way back. A goes way back with B. 例如 Matthew and I go way back. Or Matthew goes way back with me. 我和马修是老相识了。Matthew and I go way back. Matthew goes way back with me.
Go back can also mean refuse to fulfill what one promised or agreed to. When using go back for this meaning, we add the preposition on to the pattern, often followed by nouns like a promise, decision, or agreement, etc.
大家这里要特别的注意一下，这个结构中的介词必须用 on， 不能替换成其他介词。我们也可以把 go back on 整体当成一个独立的短语动词。中文可以翻译成背弃诺言、反悔食言、违背约定。
Let's take a look at some examples. Because of tight funding, the principal had to go back on his word and cancel the project. Because of tight funding, the principal had to go back on his word and canceled the project. It seems that the government is going back on its decision to shut down the factories. It seems that the government is going back on its decision to shut down the factories. We have signed an agreement of technical cooperation with your company. You can't go back on it. We have signed an agreement of technical cooperation with your company. You can't go back on it. Still keeping with the past is behind metaphor, we can use go back to mean to think or talk about something in the past. This is often used to introduce some relevant history or event. Here are some examples. If you go back half a century ago, you will find there were not so many employment opportunities for women. If you go back half a century ago, you will find there were not so many employment opportunities for women. She always likes to go back to her earlier achievements whenever she is asked about her work experience. She always likes to go back to her earlier achievements whenever she is asked about her work experience. Let's go back 300,000 years to the first modern humans. Let's go back 300,000 years to the first modern humans. All right, these should be all the common meanings for go back. I hope you have a better idea of how to use the phrasal verb with our explanations. Don't worry, if you are still not sure which one you should choose when you run into it next time, you can always go back to review our lesson.
下节微课我们会接着学习高频短语动词 come back 的用法。come back 和 go back 在语义及用法上有着怎样的相同和不同之处呢？记得锁定我们的频道，跟我们一起来揭晓答案哦。咱们下节课见吧。
Thank you for watching, and see you next lesson. Bye.
Support us on Patreon for access to exclusive learning materials. You can follow along with a PDF of our lesson PowerPoint, download high-quality audio files to listen to our lessons on the go, or get access to bilingual transcripts of each lesson. Just go to patreon.com/Corley English, select your monthly pledge amount, and instantly gain access. Your contribution will help us to keep creating more quality English learning content for you to enjoy. Thank you!